Hi, guys. Welcome back to my Steps to Sobriety, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, Stefan Neff. And today I'm very excited because I always write in emails or in other places when I sort of introduce myself that my mission is to change the world, one interview at a time, one book at a time. That is me. That is my mission. And I say that with a smile, but I actually mean it. And therefore, I'm so excited to have Kate Semeniuk with me because Kate has got the same mission. She is a world changer, a world mover, a woman who wants to give it all. But she doesn't do books or interviews, although I'm so grateful that she is here with me on the show. No, she's a hypnotherapist who uses that skill to actually help people. And for that, I'm incredibly grateful because there's so much to be said about it. But let's get into it. Welcome to the show, Kate.
Oh, I'm so honored to be here, Stefan.
Fantastic. And first of all, I'm so pleased because I myself had so much help from a hypnotherapist in my own recent past when PTSD raised its ugly head again. And indeed, to cut the story short, I've told the story a few times on my show, but within literally 3 sessions of hypnotherapy plus a guided interview where she essentially made me realize what the core problems are by asking me the right questions, I was basically not cured. You can never be cured of PTSD, but the symptoms were much reduced and calmed down. And for that, I was forever grateful, and I was blown away about the effectiveness. So therefore, let's talk about that. So let's talk about hypnotherapy in the first instance to get that out of the way, because many of the viewers or listeners will be thinking of stage shows of kind of, hey, careful, I will never go to a hypnotherapist because they turn me into a chicken and make me do chicken wing dances or something like that. So how did you get into hypnotherapy?
And I always find that very interesting that people come to hypnotherapy when they already tried so many other options and they kind of couldn't figure out what's wrong, or they relapse into the old patterns. So that would happen to me. I tried self-therapy, meditations. I tried talk therapy, traditional, but nothing worked. I had the craving all the time. When I moved to Canada 6 years ago, I stopped smoking. I thought, okay, Canada is pretty expensive for smoking, right? So I'll just stop. But the craving was there every single day. So that's what brought me to okay, there is something there. There is a block. There is an emotion that I still didn't uncover. And that's when I found Marissa Peer and her Rapid Transformational School. And I was like, okay, let's try it on me. I tried it and it helped. And I was like, I just want to do that to people as well. I just want to help in that way.
It's beautiful, isn't it? It's so powerful if you can help someone, regardless what it is. If you were to ask me, why do I really do what I do? Why am I an anesthetist? Because I can help people through a really, really rough time in their life. And they either after surgery wake up with a smile or get around in the intensive care unit and are grateful that they're still alive or things like that. So it is that the knowledge that I can help, which is one of the most beautiful things in my job. So I get a lot of self-satisfaction there, or satisfaction out of it. And I see from the grin on your face, I see, yeah, me too.
Sure.
Oh, goodness. But I mean, we need to talk about 2 things here, and they're a bit linked. So we need to talk about your name and where you come from, because Semeniuk is Ukrainian, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's right. So you grew up in the Ukraine?
Yes, I was raised and born in Ukraine for 27 years, 28. And, the culture there, it was still it was still post-Soviet Union. So all of the rules, all of the structure, all of the politics was still kind of ingrained in the Soviet culture.
Mm.
So I grew up with the alcohol on the table every day.
Exactly.
At the dinner table. It was, though my parents would tell me, no, this is so bad for you. You shouldn't be taking it. But it was there. So my mind got confused really early. Like mom says and dad says that it's not bad, but I see them so happy. They are so incredibly happy drinking. So why is this so bad? So at 12 years old, I decided to try it again as well. Why I decided to try it again, I uncovered much, much later. But when I did try, I felt that numbing, that feeling, that you numb the pain. And it's so good. You forget about everything until the next time. At 12 years old, my body was not developed. My mind was not developed. So everything was kind of damaging for for a long, long time. And I would get married and I would slow down. I would get a baby, I would slow down or not drink at all, of course, because I was pregnant. I knew, I understand. But the first day after I stopped breastfeeding, I would start drinking and smoking again. So this relapsing would happen to me multiple times, until I understood that there is something wrong, Kate. You need to look in the mirror and see that there is a problem. And I was also owning a restaurant back home in Ukraine. So alcohol was so accessible. There was no way you could avoid it. And you see that culture every single day. So you form the belief that this is how it should be. There is no other way. What do you do without drinking? There is no fun. There is no connection, right? So there was a fear that if I stop or if I quit, I will not have connection with anyone.
Mm. And that's so true, isn't it? You've already raised a lot of issues there. The availability in certain societies is just tremendous. And I was brought up like that as well. It was normal to have a glass of wine. It was normal to have beer, and it was just everyone drank. It was everywhere, and the advertisement was everywhere, and the smoking was everywhere. So yes, like you, I very much fell into that. And with hindsight, I'm actually surprised that I didn't start drinking earlier. I thought I drank the first time with purpose with 14, something like that. And I was actually quite sick with it because I on purpose wanted to see what it does when I drink more. And since then, whiskey was never my thing. Certainly, still makes me shudder just from that experience. Having said that, other drinks very quickly gave me benefits. And we often talk negative about alcohol, but when you're a young person, when you're shy and you have got that liberating feeling, oh, beautiful. Or when you have already experienced trauma and you suddenly have got a drink and that anxiety goes away. Oh, it's beautiful. It's bliss. And then many people keep forgetting that it very much served a purpose. Maybe a poor choice, but it still nevertheless served a purpose for what we were doing. And you called it numbing. And that's interesting that you say at 12, it started numbing you. You just seem to describe a happy childhood where there was laughter rather than fights in response to the vodka. Yet you liked that numbing feeling. Are you happy to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Why I understood that it was a numbing feeling for me, because I grew up in a very regular middle family. However, because of the alcohol, my older brother, he was 4 years older than me. He started to abuse alcohol like really, really often. And when he did that, he became absolutely aggressive. So aggressive that was a huge fight, screaming, yelling in the house. And me at 10, 9, 11, I couldn't understand. I was confused. What is happening? So I was in that pain, but the culture was you cannot express your feelings. Everything is great. So because of that, because I didn't express, I suppressed the anger, the resentment, the feeling different, feeling like it's my fault that they do that. Because of that, I tried. And when I got my first alcohol, of course, I didn't feel really well, However, it didn't stop me. I tried again and again. And that feeling came in, that feeling of bliss, relaxation, calm. I didn't worry about my parents, about screaming, yelling, fights. Nothing ever mattered from that point. However, in the morning, it hit me even harder.
In my book, My Steps to Sobriety, I call it hangxiety. So the hangover and anxiety, because now you feel a bit guilt and you feel a bit shame that you have been drunk. You might not even remember the end of the night. And so you had the anxiety and the problems from the day before because that didn't go away. And now you've got a new hammer of hangover. Yep, it is. Oh, I remember that so well. And that was just adding further trauma. Every day I add a little bit trauma to the mix. And it was a very toxic and self-destructive life, I must say. And you started that early. It's interesting that you were able to come off, that you were able to stop, that the drive of maternity and of bringing up a baby could break through that. And that's beautiful to see to start off with. So congratulations, because there's so many children out there of mums who couldn't do that. And you have got then a thing called fetal alcohol syndrome. Mm-hmm. And when you speak nowadays, when I speak to the wardens in our local jail here, especially the youth offenders jail, they tell me 90% of the inmates have got fetal alcohol syndrome. And that's a rough guesstimate, but it's certainly, that is where it is handed down, the crime in the generations, because of women who couldn't stop drinking or abusing whilst they were getting pregnant. So that is, it might be an exaggeration, but it's probably not so far off the truth. And it's, so yeah, I commend you. Well done, you. So the addiction was strong enough for you to come back in your life again and again. So obviously the underlying problems you didn't deal with, and you did not yet get the insight that you wanted to put a new habits into place, take new actions that lead you in a different path. So what was the catalyst then? What changed the whole story?
So when we immigrated to Canada, we of course kind of slowed down. We would drink, I would smoke, but it wasn't as like every day or every week, right? But it was still very, very obvious. What happened to me is that COVID hit. We were all at home, right? Isolated, me, 2 kids, and my husband. And only then we realized how disconnected we are. How disconnected we are. We were sitting, but kind of like hating each other at the same time. And I was like, this should be like that. We have been together for 15 years. We immigrated, went through a whole lot of issues and problems. And now this being in the house kind of revealed all the trauma, the inability to connect, the not following your heart. I understood that what I do is not something that I want to do for the rest of my life. So not listening to your heart brings depression. You know, when you do what you hate to do or just don't like to do, it brings depression. Depression brings feelings, right? Feelings bring depression, but those feelings, you need to either face them or you numb it with the alcohol, of course.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
But that's it. Yeah. However, once I started to take the courses, like started to look at the subconscious mind and the regression therapy, that's where I started to say, oh, so my connection with alcohol has nothing to do with, well, like it has to do with me, but it has nothing to do with any outer. It was my beliefs, my emotions that I wanted to numb. Yes, it was environmental for sure. However, I knew that I need to find that core reason why, when, how, and why I connected alcohol with emotion. And I found it. I found the very first time when I went into a regression, I went into the hypnosis, right? And it's a therapeutic hypnosis. It has nothing to do with the stage, right? And we do willingly go in and get induced, and we are very happy to be in that relaxed state. So when I went into regression, I uncovered that emotion of loneliness, disconnection, suppressed feelings. You cannot express what you feel. You have to shut it down. But if you shut it down, it doesn't mean it's gone. It's just shut down in the unconscious mind, and the unconscious mind doesn't like that. So it's gonna just push you, get out, let me out. And how do you let it out? At least with the alcohol, at least with a cigarette, you feel that rush.
But you get this inhibition, and often enough, there is this saying that only children and drunks are speaking the truth, and because you can actually bring out the truth, and you can then excuse it with the alcohol. So if you suddenly cry your eyes out, or if you suddenly are weak, quotation mark, by your own standards, then you can say, yeah, that was the alcohol, and everyone will understand. And how bizarre is that? Obviously, these tears needed to come out. Obviously, you needed to talk that truth. You needed to speak about what was going on. And here you are, you in broad daylight, you think, no, I can never do that. I'm a man. And therefore, it's so bizarre. I see this beautiful girl over there talking words that typically come out of the mouth of a man. Because we are brought up, boys don't cry, you're strong, you're all that. Yet the same principles have been distilled into you, and it's nuts, it's crazy how these words sound out of your mouth. But I'm so pleased that you got that insight. So there you were. And in all fairness, I mean, remember, we all make up constructs to explain our drinking. So when you have gone through a life of trauma, oh, of course, you've got, look what they have done to me. Look what they have done. And you had all the excuses, because ultimately in 2014, Russia took over the border of the Ukraine where you lived. And you essentially became, for the lack of a better word, a refugee. You thought, oh my God, where's this going? I don't want to be behind the new Iron Curtain. So you left. So that's huge trauma. That's huge. So you sold your business, you emigrated, you had little children to do so. I mean, that is, how much more stress do you want? So you had all the excuses to actually keep drinking. So did that come into the game? Did that play a role?
Absolutely. So when I had a restaurant, that's when the war started in Ukraine. So we would watch news. Because there was a huge TV, right? We would watch news. We would see those like negative. We would see the threat that is coming to us, and like, oh well, what do? Let's drink. Let's remove the stress, because it's easy. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to meditate, work on yourself. No, the quick fix is to drink, and then it gets better. In the morning, though, of course, those emotions come back. And that's where the looping thoughts happens. And that's very important for the listeners and your audience to understand that when in the morning we blame ourselves, we come back to that same feeling, that feeling of loneliness. I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. Others can quit and I cannot quit. So our mind goes back to that same feeling, and the subconscious mind this feeling, let's go back. Do you know what to do for that feeling? Go back to drink. So it's a looping thought. And the more a person drinks, the shorter that time becomes. Yeah. The more like you wake up and you already want to drink. Like, the more we drink, the more the bigger, the more deepest the emotion is, right? The more painful it is, the shorter that period is. And that period in the morning when the pain hits is a very crucial moment, because it's where our still decision making is still working. Mm-hmm. It is our only way to make any decision, because as we know, alcohol or any drug, any substance, it affects the decision-making center in the brain. Mm-hmm. So when we tell a person who is a drug addict or an alcohol addict, and we say, "Oh, you should quit," we need to understand that the decision-making center is very suppressed. It is down. It doesn't work the same as in other people. So, that looping thought comes back. So that's what happened to me. In the morning, pain kicks in. Oh, I need to drink just a wine, just a little bit here and there and there. And then by the end of the day, it accumulates and you become pretty drunk. Yeah. So that's the stress that was. And of course, I had a small child that I would come home and she saw that. So however, when we have, and every person who drank in the past or still drinking and still struggling that, and they have kids, they might not understand how it affects them. But I now have a 12-year-old girl very severely impacted by that habit. And we're still working on that, on getting her to know that mom was in depression, mom was not well, mentally. So, and that drinking is not a solution, but we still work on that from the age of 2, 3, right? It affected her. She still remembers that, and she still comes back to those memories.
Does she blame you?
No, she doesn't. However, her brain still doesn't understand why it was so painful that you needed to drink. Like, she still doesn't understand that level of pain, and I don't want her to understand that level.
Exactly.
Yeah, but she doesn't blame. She just is confused. Like, it's hard for her to understand why we had a house, we had jobs, we were okay. Why, Mom, did you need to drink? So I pull out those memories from childhood and tell her a little bit by little bit what happened to me in the past. And how long it has been happening, so that she kind of understands that it goes into the childhood very often.
You're so right. And many of us don't understand it. If at all, sometimes when you look at films, Hollywood or any kind of other films, there is often psychologists, psychiatrists, etc., are sort of tainted and sort of they're going to talk for 10 years about your childhood now. And it's automatically you make fun of it, not realizing how true it actually is. Now, if someone talks 10 years to you about your childhood, then that's probably not the most effective therapy. I think there are better ways how to do that, but you still need to recognize that trauma in childhood is something so important, because the trauma or whatever happens to you in childhood, the neglect, you being alone because mom and dad are always working, or things like that, whatever it is, it completely changes you. It installs core beliefs that often are actually bullshit. But in your children's mind, they make a lot of sense. Mommy and daddy are shouting, and it's my fault. Therefore, I need to, from now on, please everyone for the rest of my life, because it's my fault that mommy and daddy were shouting. I simplify a little bit, but you get my drift. It is these core beliefs that we need to uncover. And I think that's where we come back in the full circle to therapy in its many various forms. And what you are doing, you are essentially with hypnotherapy going very, very deep, very, very, you're very effective. Hypnotherapy can be very effective if used properly. Let's say it like that. You have got essentially your conscious mind, and there is somewhere the sort of the subconscious where sort of the feelings happening and emotions and things like that happen. And that is all driven sort of by core beliefs that are sitting down there. So most of us have no bloody clue about our emotions to start off with. Leave alone, drill down to the core beliefs. Yet it is what hypnotherapy does so well, because it resets deep down there these core beliefs. Have I expressed myself? Is that how you feel about hypnotherapy?
Absolutely. It is exactly what hypnotherapy does. And there are different modalities, and they do address the same thing, but in a different way, from a different angle. But all of them go into the subconscious mind. And that's what RTT, my modality that I'm trained in, because Marisa Peer, she works for 30 years on that method before she brought it out into the world, because she wanted to make sure it's absolutely working, that we do go to those deep core beliefs and reframe them. We make a person at 45, 55, 35 understand that I'm not 5 anymore. I'm not 7 anymore. I'm not 12. And the very interesting part is when talk therapists or any other therapist will tell you that, oh, you know what, you're harming your body, you're harming your mind with alcohol or with any other substance. However, when we go into hypnosis with the client actually comes up with drinking to save, to protect themselves. When we go and like, why did this part, this drinking, what is it doing for you? And in hypnosis, it's protecting me. Because if it doesn't protect me, what would happen? I ask them the right questions, right? As you said. And they say, because I'm in so much pain that I want to end my life. So from their mind, from the mind of the person who drinks or takes substances, they are actually making it longer, their life, because they're in so much pain that they can do something to their life. And they want to save them. Though, of course, mind does not understand that, oh, you're actually, harming your body. No, there is a more crucial part to save, to fix, and that's a suicidal thoughts or severe depression, or pain that you can do something that you don't want to. So your mind comes like, no, we have to save you. Your mind always wants to save you. Like, we need to save you. And as soon as it tries the alcohol, it records. That's what helps you. And that's what we're going to use in order to help you.
And that's so beautiful. That's and what you have just described is also where the alcohol actually deeply interferes in our belief system, because it is a disease that really changes your memory and changes your whole way how you look at the world. And it is very effective in that. The dopamine rush that an alcoholic gets is like a tidal wave of, wow, that feels good, at least in the first few times that they do. And unfortunately, that level of dopamine comes down over time. So therefore, you're always hunting that first, oh, that felt so good. I remember that, how good I felt. And it never will be the same again. And that's the cruel thing, but it still gives you that little bit of numbing there. But what are you numbing? You're numbing your emotions that come from the wrong core beliefs, and so no, it's beautiful. So your sessions, maybe let's talk the listener through a session, what actually happens, so that they get an idea. What is your setup in Canada?
Yeah, so I work with clients, and it's a very rapid way. It's a 2-hour session, and people always ask me, will I remember what I was experiencing? And I tell them, absolutely. There are hypnotherapists that use deep trance, and that also works great. But what I need for the person, for the client to understand themselves, their core beliefs that are not serving them anymore. But they need to say that I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, but I was 5 and now I'm not 5. So the 2-hour session includes induction, when we go into this deep relaxed state, and the person just feels like they're trusting the world, they're trusting themselves, that their subconscious mind will tell them exactly what it is. That I do the regression, and we regress and we go back and review, not relieve, but review those scenes, like as an observant, to see how they look at themselves and, oh yes, I was 7 and my mom just bit me. And what belief did you form out of that? That no one loves me. I'm worthless and I cannot do anything about it. And it's going to be like that for the rest of my life. So that's the core, like one of the core beliefs, right, that they form. So they, more than that, they find themselves through the regression that they repeat the same pattern throughout their whole life. How they were raised, very often, they either break this, of course, they sometimes break the cycle, but very often they stay in that same environment. They find the same partners. They treat their kids the same because this is the only way they know. So in the session, we reframe that. We look at that and it's like, okay, so this is what's your childhood, which is horrible. But now let's look at you right now. You didn't have a choice when you were a kid. You didn't have a voice when you were a child. But as a grown-up man or a grown-up woman, what do you know now that you didn't know as a little kid? And that's a light bulb for them. I was like, oh, I actually have a voice. I can say no. I can, do other things. So that's the session. And in the end, they get the recording that they need to listen to in order to make those changes permanent. And that's part of the NLP, a neuro-linguistic programming, where they listen and they reprogram their mind. We did the change, but the mind will always draw you to what's familiar. So we need to make that unfamiliar and make the new positive beliefs that I'm strong, I'm an adult, I have choices. I choose my day, I choose my life. So this is what they need to understand in the session, and then install it with the recording.
Beautiful. And that's an interesting way of doing it. It obviously makes sense that you take a lesser depth of hypnotherapy and bring out those things. My experience was a little bit different. My experience had very much the same thing, although I had the questions and the realizations just in the form of an interview. The questions were asked in the right way, and suddenly my mind came up with the right answers, which made me realize, okay. And then I had I had 3 sessions consecutive, where I was put in a deep hypnotherapy, a deep trance. And there things are a little bit different. There is I cannot recall much of what was said to me, but I know that my hypnotherapist installed, basically did an update of my software system, put a new software in there for me, and that worked exceptionally well. And the first time around, I was sitting there in my very comfortable chair, may I say, and I was off to sleep. And I thought, and then I came around and she said, no, how long did you think that took? And I said, 4 or 5 minutes. And I got introduced to the time distortion of hypnotherapy, because it was 22 minutes that I was under. And so these things do happen. And it was the most beautiful and relaxed feeling I had felt up to that moment for a long time. And it was amazing. I was light. I think I was floating out of the room. So it was beautiful. So the end result is that the same. My core beliefs were changed, specifically with the PTSD, specifically with the waking up 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning on the dot and having that repeated the worst of Stefan thrown at me, and it was just weird. And may I say, I want to say, dear viewers, listeners, guys, trauma is not a pissing contest. You don't have to go through the worst trauma with childhood sexual abuse or your friend blowing up in front of you on a mine only for you to have PTSD. PTSD, or indeed wrong core beliefs, can be installed by maybe rather innocuous things for many people, but for you, they meant trauma. For you, they had such a deep, deep impact that they left a scar, a scar in your psyche that is now making the old LP, the old vinyl, jumping again and again and again into the same groove. And what Kate and other hypnotherapists do, they take a big screwdriver, go onto that vinyl and go, and that sound will never be the same again, okay? So that's what hypnotherapy does, or what other treatment modalities do that effectively address the core beliefs. Some of them are just more efficient, and I think the rapid transformational approach and hypnotherapy is certainly something that helped me in a very fast way. A bit scary because normally you would think, wow, something that has been ingrained for what, 40 years, 45 years? You can't just do 3 sessions and you're cured. That sounds like bullshit. Yeah, cured? No, you can't cure PTSD. No, you can't cure addiction, but you can help tremendously in the symptoms and allow people to get on with their life. And now that they have made one change, they might say, I did that. Wow. Oh, I did that. Oh, maybe I can do something else too. And then what's the next step? And imagine if you do that every day. Imagine if you do one tiny little step every day and actually get yourself a little bit better. What do you think would happen in a month? Or maybe in a year? Who would you be in 3 years? Okay. And Kate is nodding there. And absolutely, I could sort of agree more, because that's what you and I have done. That's where you and I are still on this path. So ultimately, I'm so excited. I'm getting out of bed in the morning and I'm saying, yeah, okay, how can I improve today? Are you doing the same? And what is your routine in the morning?
Absolutely. When I started to work with my subconscious mind, and it was last summer that I really started to uncover, it was painful. Oh, it was very painful. It was scary because before that, I would do talk therapy and I would come and I would talk about my problems and we would schedule another session, and you talk and you talk. It kind of gets better 24 hours after the session. And then you fall back into the same pattern. Though there's a lot of insights, of course. So when I started to work with the subconscious mind, it changes not only one area of your life, like addiction, for example. It changes everything. More than that, it changes people around you.
Correct.
Like the way my family transformed, like the more closer we get, connected we get. And then I started to I need more time for myself. So I started to wake up at 5 a.m. every single morning. And I didn't know where it will bring me. But in a year, it absolutely shifted my life 180%. Like really. So I do love my morning routine, where I journal, where I do some workout, even if it's for 5-7 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a movement. And I wake up and I'm proud of myself. I was like, from where I were to where I am now. Wow, that's great. That's cool.
Exactly. And that gives you momentum. And then I nowadays can deal with challenges in such a different way. I don't need to escape them anymore. I can choose what I do. Some challenges, some new trauma will occur, like it or lump it. Little tiny traumas, micro traumas happen every single freaking day. And sometimes they happen every 6 hours, and you think, come on, really? But it is 2021 was a year like that for me, certainly, and certainly the latter part of it, I could just really only roll with the punches. It was a hammering my life got, and it was okay because I accepted what it was. I didn't get angry about it. I didn't get resentful about it. I said, okay, that's fine. These are hard times, and whatever it is, okay, look after yourself. And that meant regression, but in a negative way for me. So it was really only work, 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 come home, crash. Accept that you are tired as hell. Just, it's okay. It's okay not to be okay. And that realization is so powerful that you learn enough about yourself, that you know how you're driven, what your beliefs are. My beliefs, for example, were always you have to be the best, the absolute best. That's the only way you can be. That's quite handy when you're a doctor and you want all of your patients to survive. That's actually quite a handy thing in my profession. But it is not a very handy thing when you have to be perfect and when you become the fixer for yourself and for everyone else in your life. It's a hell of a burden that you put on yourself. And so
absolutely.
So absolutely. There is so much there. Oh man, Kate, you're an amazing woman who are there really to change lives, to change the world. And I think you're starting with your own family. That's probably the hardest. That's probably really, really good. But your daughter will grow up and experience anxiety. She will experience bullying. She will experience the negative things out there. There's no doubt about that. But she will have seen different ways. She has seen mommy drunk, maybe passed out, maybe in not such nice scenarios. And she has seen mommy dealing with it. And by you doing that and speaking about it, you have done so much. You've done so much more than many other parents. So therefore, guys, if that rings a bell and it all sounds a bit scary, etc., can you imagine how you would be as a parent if you were to go onto this journey? Don't you think that you would maybe change in your relationship with your partner, with your significant other? If you were to put, if you were to imagine that you've got a garden and every day from now on, you decide to put 5 minutes into your garden, not more, not less, but you do 5 minutes massively every day. Can you imagine that your garden after a month and after a year will look absolutely stunning, that there is not a leaf of weed somewhere? Now imagine you do that with your relationship. Just 5 minutes. Yeah. Put 5 minutes into your relationship every day. How would that change? So, but to do so, you need to make that little jump. You need the first step. And it is often the biggest step to say, actually, no, I don't need to be so proud. There is probably a lot of shit going on in my head. And probably I'm pretty screwed the way I am thinking. And maybe someone like Kate would be an amazing person to work with. Just planting that seed just a little bit. So Kate, if people want to get hold of you, if people want to work with you, is it possible to do hypnotherapy remotely?
Absolutely. Yeah, Stefan. Hypnotherapy works just as effectively online. And I did quite a ton, I would say, of sessions. I would say I did more sessions online remotely over Zoom than I did in person.
Interesting.
And it works exactly. Of course, we need to make sure that the connection is great. However, the person goes deep, and the person really, really goes into those core beliefs and transforms them, understands them first, and then reframes them changes them for the better ones. But it works amazingly great in remotely as well as in person.
So tell us, how can we find you?
I have a website, and I have like a pretty big information about RTT modality, and about Marisa Peer, who founded it, and they can book a consultation call with me, and we can find out if we are a great fit and if that's what they want, because it is not a magic pill. Any therapy involves commitment from both sides. Yeah.
So
and there is a lot in many cases, there is a fear of change, right? That will be rapid change. And then people don't know if they are ready for that. So it's great to have a call and to chat, to see each other, to build rapport, and then go from there for the session.
Indeed, right. But it often starts a journey, and you don't know where this journey leads you. And certainly in virtually every guest I've got on my show, every person I meet through my circle of friends, coaches, blah, blah. It is amazing. We all are on a journey, and we are on an amazing journey. It's something, if you could make a film out of that, it would be a feel-good film, actually, certainly in my case, because I've done so much progress and so much transformation. So life is good. And guys, so look down there into the description of the YouTube video and of the podcast, because Kate's details are in there and her website is in there. Kate, you are an amazing woman. I'm very humbled and honored that you've come to my show and shared your life and shared your insights about hypnotherapy with us. Hopefully, you will continue to make this world a little bit better, one patient at a time. I will do exactly the same. God knows what happens if we start collaborating. God knows what happens if people out there actually are listening to us and start transforming. Would this world not be a better place? I sincerely hope so. Kate, thank you very much for coming on to my show. And you guys out there, look after yourself. Live with passion, eh? Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Stefan.